Alrighty, so today we're going to do a video looking at the 10 head coaches that currently is in the hot seat in MLS and kind of rank them to see which one is most likely the one to be fired first in MLS because up till last year we actually saw two head coaches already been fired before the season turns to May. We saw Mateus Almeida got fired by the Quakes near the end of April, and then 1 week later we saw Hernan Losada got fired by DC United. So I think we're kind of getting to the part of the season where we're already past the quarter mark and getting to the time where there are going to be some teams that is looking for a coaching change, especially for those teams that are performing under their expectation so far this season. But with that being said, let us actually begin at number 10. And at number 10, I'm going to say it's going to be Wayne Rooney. Now, this is going to be kind of tough to look at some of these head coaches that is around 10, 9, 8, and 7 because these are kind of head coaches that are kind of in the hot seat, but you might think that they may either last for the entire season or beyond for that. So, in the case of Wayne Rooney, it's kind of interesting because, DC, when they decided to give him a contract to be the head coach of this team, it was only an 18-month contract. And in some way, this is actually his last year of his contract, and that the project that he put is pretty much a short-term project. It's to get this team to the playoffs, or else they potentially let him go. Now, so far, DC is actually performing pretty well this season. They're currently in eighth place in the Eastern Conference, and if the season ends today, they would have accomplished what they want to do, which is of course make it to the playoffs. But again, as I said with Wayne Rooney and with DC United, it's very tough to see whether or not if they are going to keep him or maybe extend him, or the fact that they're going to let him go. It really kind of depends on the resort. So if the resort started to go back for Wayne Rooney and this DC team, I won't be surprised that DC might be thinking about a coaching change and admit what they did last season. It's kind of a weird situation with DC too, because you can see that this team, it feels like they should be going for a rebuild, but they're instead going for a retool and just kind of almost with the squad that they built, it's kind of a boom and bust kind of squad, and hope that things would work out. So yeah, again, it's kind of weird, but that's what they're committed, and that's kind of the same thing for Wayne Rooney. And that again, I think it really now depends on how the performance was. The performance continue to do well. There's no doubt that he's not going to be fired, and maybe even DC might be thinking about extending him to a contract extension. Now at number 9, I'm gonna say Josh Wolf. Now I know Austin fans have been very frustrated with what Josh Wolf has done this season, but I mean, I don't think this bad season start to the season for Austin is all on Josh Wolf. I mean, the talent, of course, is there, but unfortunately, I think this is just one of the cases where either players kind of overachieved last season, and there was definitely a lot of players from this Austin team kind of overachieved last year to get themselves finishing second in the West and made it all the way to the Western Conference Final. But it's also the fact that some players are clearly playing below their expectation. I mean, got it's like Rigoni, the one that they thought he was gonna be just as good as Trey Using. That hasn't worked out whatsoever. And then not to mention Jersey Zardes that they got. They thought that he was gonna be the number 9 leading this team, and he's having an absolute disastrous season. But that being said, it kind of also doesn't help the fact that some of the tactics decision that Josh Wolf have made hasn't really worked out that well, and especially I'm pretty sure Austin fans are very frustrated of what he did to the back line, even earlier this season when he decided to put the likes of Kip Kettler as the line, and that of course didn't work out. And then of course we never forget in CCL decided to put Armor Tarek there, and it turns out to be an absolute disastrous decision. But again, I don't think all of this is on Josh Wolf. But again, when you have a bad start to the season, yeah, your fan base is going to be a little bit frustrating. Maybe are calling your heads, and knowing the fact that Austin is kind of a fan base that I feel like maybe they taste success last season and maybe kind of got a little bit spoiled with the way that maybe Austin is not as good as it. I mean, it's a playoff team, but definitely not a team that they thought would repeat to go all the way back to the Western Conference Final and maybe even finish the job. Then we go to number 8, and at number 8, let's say Oscar Pereira. Now, for Oscar Pereira, I feel like I'm putting him a little bit low on this list. I mean, I'm pretty sure maybe some Orlando City fans feel like he should be high on this list, but again, for Oscar Pereira, just like Wayne Rooney, it really kind of depends on the resort. I mean, so far for Orlando City this season, it's kind of been the same as last season, which is this is a team that has been very inconsistent, and that we know that they can win road games, and what Oscar Pereira has done to this team on the road has pretty much worked out. I mean they follow the perfect role format of just trying to defend and maybe nicking a goal or so, and be good defensive wise, which is what they have been done. But the problem is that's just not how it's translated into home form. And I think what's frustrating about Orlando City fans is all the signing that they made this offseason that was supposed to improve the team, especially attack, it just have not kind of work out. And this is where, if that is the case, maybe you kind of have to see in terms of I mean, there are also the case that maybe some of these new players that they bought has not settled in, or guys that are kind of playing below their expectation. And I also think that like what I've said before in the beginning of the season, this Orlando City team, it's gonna take time for it to gel. But it also kind of doesn't help the fact that when you look at some of the tactics that Oscar Pereira has done and the way that he set up his team, it doesn't scream to be a way where they're going to get back to that fun team that Oscar Pereira coached just a couple of years ago when he came in with Orlando City. So yeah, again, I think that if this Orlando City team doesn't do well, and that if they do make it to the playoffs, but it's a first round exit, I can definitely see the coaching change. But as of now, I think they're kind of in a situation where you can't just say you're gonna fire Oscar Pereira because of the way that they're not well. You're just hoping that maybe it's just the team needs to continue to gel, and as the season goes along, this Orlando City team is gonna get better. Then we get to number 7, and this is gonna surprise some people, especially from Sporting KC fans. I think a lot of Sporting KC fans watching this video feel like I should be putting Peter Vermees up here in the top three. But the reason why I say that he's at number 7, and the fact that I know that there's been a lot of outcry in the Sporting KC fan base that want Peter Vermees to be gone, and that the start of the season for Sporting KC has just been an absolute disaster in a historic level too, especially with the goal scoring. But again, I mean, there are definitely a lot that goes to Peter Vermees, and especially you can clearly see the way that he set up this team is just doesn't work whatsoever. But you got to also remember that there are something that I think could be kind of out of his control in a bit, where obviously injuries has played a big part to the Sporting KC team of not performing well, especially on the attacking end. I mean, they just recently got some of their key attacking pieces in Johnny Russell and Alan Polito back in this team, and obviously they still have issue in terms of the defensive end. But again, the other thing that I think maybe I don't see Sporting KC is going to let go of Peter Vermees anytime soon is just simply they gave him a 5-year contract extension. Like the front office is not going to fire a guy after you just give a long-term extension, especially with the way that the front office believe that Peter Vermees is the guy to continue to guide this team throughout long term. So yeah, even with this historic bad start to the season, I mean, again, I think the front office is gonna reluctant to fire him straight away, and they're just gonna see how it goes. And yeah, I mean, it is bad, but if they do get some of their attacking, if their attacks start to get back together, then and if they can have kind of almost like a repeat of last season, except this time actually get their slow start turn around quicker than last year, then maybe this team would be much better. But like I said, it is very doom and gloom right now in Sporting KC. But even though I know a lot of Sporting KC fans want Peter Vermees to be gone, I just don't see it, especially with the fact that the front office clearly said that they trust that he is going to be their long term future. And then at number 6, I'm gonna say Christian Latanzio. Now, I had a debate about this one because I was thinking about putting Christian Latanzio a little bit higher in terms of head coaches that I think is going to be fired first in MLS this season, mainly because um, this season has been a rough start for Charlotte FC, and whatever Christian Latanzio has done to get to get the best out of a team that has limited resource from last season. It's kind of surprised the fact that he's done a great job in terms of that, but this season when he's actually been getting the resource and getting the talent in the team, he just cannot able to string it back to the team that was last season, which was a team that again, even though they missed the playoffs with the way how they were kind of balancing a very thin squad, it's remarkable how Charlotte was able to be still in the playoff race for that long of a period. But again, this season it has just not worked out whatsoever, and that again, some Charlotte fans don't like the some of the tactics, especially with the way that it's kind of weird for him. Like we've seen in the past couple of games where this Charlotte team will go up 1-0, and then he just kind of gone ultra defensive and hoping for them to hold on to a result when it's pretty clear that the Charlotte defense is not really the one that could usually hold on to resort as we've seen in the past couple of games. So there's that in terms of what Charlotte fans are kind of frustrated with Latanzio of just instead of keep going for it, they decided to kind of shut up shop and then just try to absorb as much pressure as possible, and then they aren't able to to do so. So yeah, again, I think Latanzio, there is some pressure, and not to mention, this Charlotte FC front office, they're not afraid in terms of firing head coaches. Although last year with Miguel Angel Ramirez, I think we all saw that coming with the way that they decided to fire him because of some of the comments that he made about the front office. But yeah, still, if this team does not do well and continue this slow start, maybe this front office might be tempted in terms of trying to replace Latanzio with another head coach. But it's also worthy to note that another thing that maybe he might not be let go so soon is because they just name him as the permanent head coach. That would be a good look for a front office to basically fire a guy straight away when you just name a guy as the permanent head coach just a couple of months ago in the beginning of the season. Then we go to number 5. I'm going to say Greg Vanny. So for Greg Vanny, again, there's a lot of pressure that is definitely on him, and especially Galaxy fans have never been a fan of Greg Vanny, and the project that he's trying to bring to this team is it's now into the third season, and it doesn't feel like it has improved in any shape. Now I will say that for Greg Vanny, I don't think all the situation that's going on with the team is all on him, especially again I mentioned before with the Galaxy, they're in a situation where unfortunately, with all the off-field distraction that is going on, it's now kind of got into the on field product too, where they just have not looked good whatsoever. But that being said, again, Greg Vanny has been under pressure a lot for his run. Really, last season when they were on a very bad run before they kind of turned their season around the second half of the season, a lot of Galaxy fans want Vanny to be fired. And I also think that even if they decide to fire Greg Vanny, I mean, I don't know if that's going to solve anything. We know what's the real issue for the Galaxy this season, and really, just I'm pretty sure the fan base know what's the big issue with this team this season is that their president Chris Klein is still there, and that they're very frustrated the fact that he's not willing to leave. Until recently he basically said that he will leave if the team is not going to make it to the playoffs. So again, yeah, this is going to be interesting to see how it goes, and that again, if they do fire Greg Vanny, I mean, I don't know if that's going to solve the issue. And it's been shown that the Galaxy, they have fired a lot of head coaches in the last couple of years, and that when you basically fire a lot of head coach and you have like a turnstile in terms of the coaching position, maybe the head coaching position isn't the real issue. And again, this goes back to what I said before, how I'm pretty sure every Galaxy fans know what is the main issue and what's the downfall of this team. And even if some that said that Greg Vanny is the issue, he's not just the main issue. He's part of the issue, but the bigger issue is definitely who's running up top, and especially them kind of protesting about Chris Klein eventually actually have to leave this team because of how bad of a job he's been doing for the past couple of seasons. Then we go to number four. Let's say Bob Bradley. So for Bob Bradley, obviously, I think there's pressure on him this season in terms of getting this TFC team to perform because it's been very underwhelming ever since he came in. He didn't have that same impact that TFC fans were thinking that it would be like what he guide his LAFC team does in when they came into the league, and especially with some of the amount that they have spent and some of the moves that they made, you would expect this team should be a contender in the Eastern Conference, but yeah, just have not, of course, work out whatsoever. And that I think the tricky thing about Bradley and if TFC decide to fire him is the fact that well, if they fire Bob Bradley, they're gonna also have to look for a new sporting director because Bob Bradley is the one that is not only coaching this team, but he's also the sporting director and the guy that is making the moves to construct this team. But again, with TFC not performing very well this season, I mean, I will say that they are going to get some of these players back. They're kind of once again dealing with an injury riddle start to the season as it has been for the past couple of years, and we'll see once they do potentially get a healthy squad, and potentially is the key word here because it's very rare that this TFC team has a fully strength team. Then maybe this Bob Bradley can work his magic and really get this team up in the standings. But until then, again, if this team continue to disappoint, continue to be near bottom of the Eastern Conference, I won't be surprised if the TFC front office are going to be thinking about another coaching change. Then we get to number three. It's going to be Phil Neville. So again, Miami fans are once again shouting Neville out and put their displeasure off their head coach. I mean, I feel like for Phil Neville during his time in MLS, it's been a very kind of polarized where there's been times where their fan base want him to be fired because they're on a losing streak, and then when things are finally going right, they're starting to praise that maybe Neville is the right man to do so. But either way, they're on a losing streak right now. It feels like we're in this pattern again where it looks like Phil Neville could be fired. And I would also say that, I probably could have put him a little bit higher in or a little bit lower in terms of the head coach that I think could be first fired in MLS because we've seen this before where this team goes through this ridiculous losing streak and the front office just say, well, we're just gonna keep Phil Neville, even though I know there's been a lot of you that have said that he should be gone because of how bad he's been coaching the team. We're just gonna keep him staying and hope that things will turn around, and things, of course, did turn around. So if this Inter Miami team can turn around this 6 game losing streak that they're in, I mean they kind of got off to a little bit of a decent start with the U.S. Open Cup win. Maybe we won't see Phil Neville be a name that will be mentioned. That could be the first head coach to be fired. But if this losing streak does continue, I mean when you have a free fall like what Inter Miami is going for right now. If it gets even worse, that's when we usually see the head coach could potentially be fired, and we'll see. If this losing streak continue to a point where it could if it reached like double digit, then I think this front office, who has been very patient with Phil Neville, I think they have no choice. They're probably gonna have to let him go. Then we go to number two. So this is a guy that was fired last season, and a guy that I mentioned earlier was the first to be fired last year, and unfortunately, he's back on the list of potentially one of the first one to be fired. I mean, I don't know if there is actually a head coach that can be the first one to be fired from one season, and then the very next season he could be fired again. But unfortunately, that's kind of the situation with her and Lasada. In fact, for a long time, I've said that Lasada could be potentially the first one to be fired because again, it just feels like whatever philosophy he's trying to implement to his Montreal side, it just have not worked whatsoever. And I know maybe with a new head coach, things will take a while for the team to 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 accept the new head coach in terms of the philosophy and tactics that they want to put in the team. But it's getting to a point where we're now 9 games deep into the season, and nothing has gone right for this Montreal team. In fact, I mean, I know that losing a couple of their key players, either selling them off of transfer, big money transfer this off season is going to hurt the team, but I didn't think it was going to hurt the team to a point where this Montreal side is right now. Now, well, the worst team in the league right now. So, yeah, again, I think for this Montreal front office, if this does continue to get worse, they might think that Hernan Lasada might not be the right guy. And knowing the fact that they are kind of also going for they maybe are accepting that they're going through a bit of a rebuild right now. They might think that maybe Hernan Lasada is not the answer in terms of guy as the head coach, the guy through our rebuild, because again, right now it's just been very bad for Montreal, and it's into a point where, like I said, they're admitting that they're probably gonna rebuild, and if they do decide to rebuild, I'm not sure if they think Hernan Asada might be the man to lead them to do so. And then we get to number one as the head coach that I think most likely would be the first to be fired. And I'm kind of surprised that he hasn't been, but Gerhard Stuver is definitely number one as the head coach that could be the first one to be fired. I mean, from the terrible start that this Red Bulls team has to what happened last week, where it has to be rock bottom to a point where they lose to a Montreal side that was the worst team in the league, and not to mention they were down a man in that game. I mean, yeah, the fact that they still lose that despite all that circumstances, yeah, a lot of Red Bulls fans are absolutely fuming in terms of how their team and how Gerard Stuber has coached his team. And then, of course, the icing on the cake has to be how he handled the Dante Benzier situation. I mean, that was just absolutely unacceptable of what he the way that he handled it. And that, again, a lot of Red Bulls fans are kind of surprised that he didn't get let go in that moment because of how much of a nightmare that he dealt that situation. But either way, add on top of that and this Red Bulls team that is clearly underachieving this season. Remember how I said that this team was supposed to look like they could be the best Red Bull team since 2018? Yeah, so much for that. I mean, they look like a team that could be missing the playoffs for the first time in 13 season, and that again for the Red Bulls, this is also a team that's not afraid to fire their head coach if things are gone absolutely haywire, and that I won't be surprised that for Gerhard Stuber, if the Red Bulls continue to struggle, I think Gerhard Stuber potentially will be the first one to be fired. I mean, you can't imagine how this Red Bulls front office is going to continue how this with how bad they've been this year, and that yeah, again, I think Gerhard Stuber most likely could be the first head coach to be fired this season. But there you have it. That is pretty much it in terms of looking at 10 head coaches that I think could could potentially be the first to fire and kind of ranking them. Let me know in the comments below, what do you think of this ranking, and if you think that some of these head coaches might be a little bit too high or too low in the rankings in terms of the first head coach to be fired in MLS. Let me know in the comments below. But until then, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you guys leave a like, smash the subscribe button, and yeah, I of course will see you guys next time.